Hello, and welcome to the Forestation teaching video. I'm going to show you how to play a two-player game. The first thing to do is to put the game board on the table with the two-player side facing up. A four-player game is played exactly the same way, except the four-player side of the game board faces up. The next thing to do is to choose a color. I choose red, and my opponent across the table from me chooses blue. So I receive two red workers, and my opponent receives two blue workers. We both receive a forest tile. You can choose the land side or the river side. The land side has an extra spot for trees and prey, but the river side has a spot for 4 fish. It doesn't matter which side you choose. For your first game, either side will be fine. The next thing we both receive is a prey card from the prey deck and a predator card from the predator deck. We both receive a $2 coin and a score sheet. The youngest player receives the starting player marker, and the last player receives an extra $1 coin. Now we deal 4 season cards into the season row. We flip over the first season card to begin the first season of the very first year. Let's see what the first season card says. It says, Building Boom. Place a worker on the space below to receive a nature house for $1. The function of these season cards is to mark the passage of time. They can also, as in this case, provide players with extra options. We will talk about these extra options at a later time. Forest market cards give special powers to the players that can obtain those cards by meeting the requirements. For a basic beginner game, these cards are not needed. Normally these cards would be dealt into the forest market row, but in a beginner game we will simply ignore these cards and not play with them at all. When you become more advanced, you can read the rulebook and play with these cards. They really add an extra dimension to the game. My opponent goes first because he has the starting player marker. Let's turn over his prey card and see what it says. The black writing says, a moose arrives in your forest when it can be with a birch tree. It also says, moose have very flexible joints, and unlike horses, they can kick sideways and frontwards, as well as backwards. The white writing offers an interesting fact, but is unrelated to the play of the game. And though the white writing has educational value, we will ignore it for the purposes of this video. The black writing, however, is important. It's telling our opponent that if he can get a birch tree, a moose will come. In Forestation, the way to get trees is to buy seeds. The Forestation board is divided into 16 actions. Can you find the buy seeds action? That's right, it's over here. So our opponent takes one of his workers and places it on the buy seeds action. He places it on a little green box called a worker space. And just underneath the worker space is the cost of the action. Notice the 2 red glowing coins beneath the worker space he just used. This means that the buy seeds action costs $2. So he pays $2 and receives the birch seeds that he needs for his moose to come. He doesn't get his moose yet, because those seeds have not yet grown into a birch tree. Now it's our turn. Let's have a look at our prey card. It says, a squirrel arrives in your forest when it can be placed on a forest tile with a wildlife officer. Can you find the wildlife officer action on the board? That's right, it's here. Let's place a worker on it. Can you see how much it costs? It only costs $1 because there is only one glowing red coin underneath the worker space. So we pay $1 and receive our wildlife officer. We can now choose to play our prey card because we've met all the requirements. So we discard our prey card and receive our squirrel. Now it's our opponent's turn. If he waters his seeds, they will turn into a tree. Can you find the water seeds action on the board? That's right, it's here. So our opponent takes his second worker and places it on the water seeds action. Notice how the water seeds action has no little green boxes, no worker spaces to place your worker. Instead, it has an infinity symbol. The infinity symbol means a limitless number of workers can be placed on the action. There are no little red coins underneath the infinity symbol, so the action is free. So our opponent flips his seeds over to the tree side. Our opponent has now met the requirements on his prey card. He finally has a birch tree in his forest, so he can play his prey card and receive his moose. Now it's time to play our last worker. As you can see, we have a prey animal in our forest, the squirrel, but we don't have a predator. Let's look at our predator card. Our predator card says, a cougar enters your forest provided you have an empty predator box and more elk than cougars. Predators score points in this game, as you'll soon see. And predators are attracted to prey, just like this cougar is attracted to elk. To get more prey into our forest, it would be nice to have another prey card. Let's go on prey migration and pick up another prey card. Can you find where prey migration is? That's right, it's here. The 2 worker spaces on the left are free, and you only get 1 prey card. The single worker space on the right costs $1, but you can choose one of 2 prey cards. We'll just go on one of the free worker spaces. You'll notice now that all workers are on the board, so no one has any turns left this season. Everyone collects all their workers, and a new season card is flipped over to begin the new season. It is now the 2nd season of the first year. My opponent has the starting player marker, so he goes first. He has no money, so he decides to go on community grant. Can you find the community grant action? That's right, it's here. As you can see, when he goes there, he will collect $2. Green coins at the top of the action indicate the money you receive, as opposed to red coins at the bottom of the action, which represent the amount of money you need to pay. So he goes on community grant and collects $2. Now it's our turn. Why don't we get another worker? Can you find on the board where we might be able to get another worker? That's right, over here at Recruit Workers. As you can see, the Recruit Workers action costs $2. The orange rectangle is where we put the new worker. He won't be ready for use until we collect all our workers again. So we take the Recruit Workers action, pay $2, and receive a new worker. Now it's our opponent's turn. He decides to buy a fish to put in his river. Can you see where he can get a fish? That's right, it's here. It's the river restoration action. It says, receive 1 fish, and as you can see, it costs $1. He puts his worker on the worker space, pays $1, and receives 1 fish to put in his river. Now it's our turn. We have no money. I'd like to get $2 at community grant, but there is only 1 worker space there and our opponent is using it. Let's take the starting player marker so we can go on community grant first next time. Can you see what action allows us to do that? That's right, it's here. It's the early bird action. It's free, and we will receive the starting player marker. So we put our last worker on early bird and receive the starting player marker. All workers are now on the board, so the season is over. We collect all our workers, flip over a new season card, and begin the 3rd season of the first year. It is our turn first now, because we have the starting player marker. As you recall, I said we had no money, so I wanted to make sure it was my turn first so I could go on community grant and receive $2. But something even better has turned up. Can you see what it is? It's over here. It's the new season card. It says place a worker on the space below to receive $3. The worker space is yellow, which means this season only. All season cards are only active for 1 season. So we take our first worker and we place it in the little yellow box on the season card. Then we collect $3. Our opponent collects $2 at community grant. As you can see, money is important in this game. There is another very powerful way to get money, but you have to build it up over the years. I'll show you how it works. We go on an action called Raise Awareness. Let's look at what it does. If you pay $1, you receive 1 awareness token. It works in conjunction with the action above it, Collect Donations. When you take the Collect Donations action, you collect $1 for every awareness token you have. So if you keep buying awareness tokens on the Raise Awareness action, then the Collect Donations action can become very profitable. The maximum number of awareness tokens you can have is 5, so the collect donations action can potentially give you up to $5. Let's pay $1 and receive our first awareness token. Now it's our opponent's turn. He goes on an action called Capture and Release. The Capture and Release action costs $3, and you can buy any animal that you want for your forest. So he pays $3, and he decides to buy another moose. We have one more worker than our opponent, so we get one more turn this season. Let's pick up a little bit of money at the four-season fair. I would have gone to the community grant action instead, but it's been blocked by our opponent. The nice thing about the four-season fair is it has an infinity sign, which means it can never be blocked. Any number of workers can go on it. However, you only receive $1 instead of 2. So we get $1. The third season of the first year is now over because all workers are on the board. So we collect all our workers and flip over the last season card of the first year. Sometimes the season cards give you extra options, as we saw in the first 3 seasons. But other times, season cards can reveal negative events. In this case, the season card says, Poachers. Roll a die for every animal that is on a forest tile without a wildlife officer. If you roll a 1, that animal is lost to poaching. Let's see if anyone has an animal that is on a forest tile without a wildlife officer. Well, our squirrel is protected because it is on a forest tile with a wildlife officer. But let's look at our opponent's forest. He has 2 moose and 1 fish, and none of them are on a forest tile with a wildlife officer. So remembering the season card, he will have to roll a die for each of these animals. Point to the first animal you're rolling for and roll the die. A 1 was rolled. That animal is lost to poaching. Now point to the next animal and roll the die again. This time a 1 was not rolled, so he keeps that animal. Now we point to the third and last animal that's on a forest tile without a wildlife officer. We roll the die for a third and final time. Again a 1 was not rolled, so he keeps that animal too. There are no animals left to roll for, so we can now begin taking actions with our workers. We have the starting player marker, so it's our turn first. Let's see what my prey card says. It says, an elk arrives in your forest when it can be placed on a forest tile with a park warden. So let's get a park warden and receive our elk. Can you see where we can get a park warden? That's right, over here, at the park warden action. It costs $1. So we place our worker there, pay $1, and receive our park warden. Now that we have our park warden, we can play our prey card and receive our elk. Now that we have our elk, we have more elk than cougars, so we can play our predator card and receive our cougar. Now it's our opponent's turn. He's out of money, so he goes on community grant and collects $2. Now it's our turn. We don't have a tree in our forest yet. Let's buy some seeds. It doesn't matter what kind we get, so we pay $2 and receive arbutus seeds. Now it's our opponent's turn. He decides to go on river restoration, pay $1, and receive another fish. Now it's our last turn of the year. I'd like to get some money. So I go on Four Seasons Fair and collect $1. It is now the end of the year because all 4 seasons have been played. So we collect all our workers, and we now perform the year-end steps. You can find them on your quick reference sheet. Step 1 says collect $1 for every nature house. Neither of us have nature houses, so this step does not apply. The next step says pay $1 per worker or lose 1 point for each unpaid worker on your score sheet, red boxes near the top. I have 3 workers, but only $1. I could choose to keep the dollar and lose 3 points, but instead I decide to pay the dollar and lose only 2 points. So I mark a number 2 in the first red box on my score sheet. My opponent has 2 workers, but only $1. He decides to pay the dollar and lose only 1 point on his score sheet. The next year-end step says animals breed. Like animal pairs produce one offspring that is placed on top of one of their parents until step 5 below. We don't have any like animal pairs, but our opponent does. Can you find his like animal pair? That's right, it's the two fish. So he receives a new fish to put on top of one of its parents for now. The next year-end step says, predators feed or leave. Our opponent doesn't have any predators, but we do. We have a cougar. As you can see on the quick reference sheet, cougars require 8 food, and they can hunt fish, squirrels, beavers, and elk, but they can't hunt moose. That information is also on the back of the cougar tile. Now our elk, as you can see, is worth 7 food, and our squirrel, as you can see, is worth 3 food. The cougar will have to eat both the elk and the squirrel, or it will leave our forest. If it eats both animals, there will be 2 food left over called carrion. Carrion can be eaten by all predators in your forest. However, we have no more predators, so the carrion will be wasted. We could have chosen for the cougar to leave our forest instead of eating anything, but I decided against that because the cougar is worth points, as we'll soon see. The next year-end step says, all offspring produced in step 3 must be placed in predator, prey, or fish boxes as appropriate, or they leave. Remember the fish that was born in my opponent's forest? It now must find a fish box or it leaves. There, it found a fish box. Step 6 of the year-end step says, all prey without trees, fish excluded, must now be placed with a tree or they leave. Prey already with trees may not move. The only player with prey is my opponent. He has a moose in a prey box with footprints leading to a birch tree. That moose is said to be with a tree, and therefore stays in his forest. Number 7 of the year-end step says, all seed tiles are flipped to the tree side. We have arbutus seeds in our forest, so they grow on their own into an arbutus tree. The last year-end step says, score 2 points on your score sheet for every predator, green boxes at top. Our opponent doesn't have any predators in his forest, but we have one predator, the cougar. So we scored 2 points in the first green box at the top of our score sheet. The first year is over. Now we're ready for the second year. We discard the old season cards and deal 4 new ones face down. We flip over the first season card of the new year, follow its instructions, and then start taking actions beginning with the starting player. In Forestation, you can play a 1, 2, 3, or 4-year game. Let's end the game here after just 1 year. When the entire game is over, we perform the game end scoring. Let's look at the scoring card and see where that happens. The bottom 2/3 of the scoring card is for game end scoring. You count up everything in your forest and reach a total score. Let's count up everything in our forest and see how much we get. We have no moose, no beaver, no elk, no squirrels, 1 tree, 1 forest tile, no nature houses, 1 wildlife officer, 1 park warden, no fish, no dams. We don't have all 5 prey species. We don't have all 4 predator species. We don't have all 5 tree species. Now let's add up all our points and see what our total score is. 2 minus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4. So our total score is 4. Now let's see how our opponent did. He has 1 moose, no beaver, no elk, no squirrel, 1 tree, 1 forest tile, no nature houses, no wildlife officers, no park wardens, 3 fish, with each fish scoring half a point, making 1.5 points, 0 dams. Dams are something you can learn about in the advanced rules. He doesn't have 5 prey species, he doesn't have 4 predator species, he doesn't have 5 tree species. So his grand total is 4.5 minus 1, which makes 3.5. So the final score was 4 to 3.5. We beat him by half a point. Thank you for watching this teaching video. To learn about the forest market cards and to learn about beaver dams, please consult the rulebook. You may also watch the full playthrough video here on this website.